Will Adam Fox have another excellent season that leads to his second Norris Trophy? Plus, we are calling out the NHL Network for ranking Fox as the number 8 defenseman in the NHL.
You're Locked on the New York Rangers, your daily podcast on the New York Rangers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back, Blue Shirts fans, to episode number 1144 of the Locked On New York Rangers podcast. I'm your host, John Chick. So I want to thank you guys, as always, for making Locked On New York Rangers your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. And today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by FanDuel. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Visit FanDuel.com today to get started. And so it's finally time to do this episode. We've had to push it back several times here because obviously the Rangers getting back into the swing of things. The first day of practice was actually yesterday on Thursday. That was the first day of on-ice practice. They are wrapping up a practice now as I speak, or it might even be over at this point here on Friday. And we've got the first preseason game on Sunday. But what we do every offseason, as the everydayers are very well aware, and the new listeners have probably picked up on this as well, we do our best and worst case scenarios for every single player on the New York Rangers heading into the upcoming season. Everybody that we project to be on the opening night roster. And like I said, there's been a little bit of a pause here due to some other things going on, but it is definitely now time to talk about Adam Fox, one of the absolute premier defensemen in the NHL. And as we always do on here, we do the best case scenarios, the worst case scenarios. Let's get the bad out of the way first. We'll start with the worst case scenarios for Adam Fox, and then we'll move on to the best case scenarios as well. A couple other things to do today as well. But for worst case scenarios for Adam Fox, I think this one is somewhat self-explanatory, but I also do think that it's worth bringing up because Adam Fox has been a very durable player, throughout his career with the Rangers in the NHL. But I think in a worst-case scenario, you could see a situation where possibly those injuries linger because he had a couple of pretty rough-looking lower body injuries last year. The first one happened early in the season against the Canes, nasty, knee-on-knee collision between him and Sebastian Aho. And then it happened again at about the worst possible time that you could have it happen in the playoffs against the Capitals. And very clearly, Adam Fox, he was out there and he was doing the best that he could, but he was not the Adam Fox that we all know and love, and the guy that, is very clearly established as one of the truly elite defensemen in this league. So 2 rough-looking injuries. They both fall under the dreaded lower body injury designation. So obviously the hope here among Ranger fans is that he's past all that and he's ready to go. Adam Fox, there's a lot of things he does very, very well out there, but one of his best attributes, we could go on and on about, and we will, because we got the best case scenarios coming up, but his mobility, his ability to just maneuver around the ice. He can hold the puck for about as long as he wants to, sees the ice very well. I don't want to see any of that mobility, any of that movement take a hit this upcoming season because, he's dealing with some injuries that have piled up this past season. I don't think that'll be the case. By all accounts, going into training camp here, it sounds like basically everybody is healthy. I believe they said Yaroslav Hemler was a little bit dinged up from the rookie series. And who was the other one? Riley Nash was going to miss a good chunk of training camp as well. And Jonathan Quick had a maintenance day. But other than that, it was all systems go for this Ranger team. There was no mention about this being an issue. But again, I don't want to see Adam Fox compromise in even the slightest way because it is a joy to watch him go out there and play hockey for the New York Rangers. So certainly we hope that the injuries are in the past and that won't sap his mobility or anything else heading into this upcoming season. We've also got a more lighthearted worst case scenario for Adam Fox here. I alluded to this just a couple minutes ago in the intro. I think in a worst case scenario for Adam Fox, the NHL Network will fail to see his greatness and will continue to rank him as the number 8 defenseman in the league. This actually was a thing, the NHL Network, and they do a great job. I'm not picking on the NHL Network. It's a great channel. As recently as say like 10 years ago or 15 years ago, without looking up when the NHL Network premiered, we would have loved to have had, a channel like this. This is still kind of a relatively new thing where all the different sports have, their own network, relatively speaking. But yeah, the NHL Network ranked their top 10 defensemen, their top 10 goalies, their top 10 everything. They put Adam Fox at number 8. Adam Fox, the same guy who has been basically a superstar ever since debuting in this league. The guy that was better than a point per game player last season, the guy that basically excels in every facet of the game, the guy that doesn't really have any holes in his game whatsoever. He even set a new career high in hits last year, did Adam Fox with 44. And in the last 4 seasons, when you go from least recent to most recent, the last 4 seasons for Adam Fox, this is where Fox finished in Norris Trophy voting in those 4 seasons. So we'll go back to 4 years ago. Now, that year, he actually won the Norris Trophy. Number 1 defenseman in the league. The year after that, he was 5th. The year after that, he was 2nd. And then just this past year, he was 4th. So this is somebody that has not finished worse than 5th in Norris Trophy voting in any of the last 5 years, yet somehow NHL Network placed him at number 8. A couple of you guys pointed that out to me as well. A bunch of episodes back, a couple people had it in the comments section. So again, I don't really understand why that happened or where that came from or anything like that. But yeah, in one way or another, NHL Network has him at number 8. And I felt like it would probably only be fair if we went ahead here and looked at their entire, we'll do the top 10. I'm not going to just stop at 8. We might as well do the top 10. So they got Cale Makar number 1, fine, whatever. You want to play him number 1, that's fine by me. Quinn Hughes number 2. Again, unreal season last year for him. Got close to 100 points as a defenseman. No issues there. Victor Hedman, to me, Adam Fox has long since surpassed Victor Hedman. I'd have Fox no lower than number 3. Roman Josi, model of consistency and even, getting into the back 9 of his career, fantastic defenseman. I've still got Fox ahead of him. And I've certainly got Fox, I would say, ahead of Miro Heiskanen at number 5. Gustav Forsling at number 6. Now, Forsling had a great year last year and was big in the Panthers' run of the Stanley Cup championship, but that was really his first, really big time elite season to my knowledge. So having Fox behind him doesn't really make any sense. And Charlie McAvoy, really good defenseman. To me, he's not Adam Fox. So those are the 7 that are ahead of him. And then Fox is at 8. You got Evan Bouchard at number 9 and Devin Tays at number 10. So yeah, it's just one ranking. I get the feeling that we as fans probably get a lot more hung up on this kind of stuff than Adam Fox and the rest of the players in this league do. But be that as it may, I do think that Adam Fox certainly should be ranked higher than 8th in the NHL when it comes to NHL defensemen, especially when you look at that Norris Trophy voting over the last handful of seasons. I'll be honest, we do these every year, the best and worst case scenarios. Worst case scenario for Adam Fox is one of the most difficult ones for me to put together because there just aren't really any holes. There's not really any reason to be concerned. You pencil him in to the top line or the top pairing. You put him in at top power play. Obviously, he's going to quarterback that. And he's going to kill penalties. He's going to do everything. He's just a do-it-all defenseman. Age is certainly not a concern at all up until this past season. And even really now, I would say injuries are not really a concern at all either. Doesn't play a style where you think his game is going to age poorly. So there's not really a whole lot to come up with when it comes to worst-case scenarios for Adam Fox. But that's a good thing. Like I said, you just pencil him into the lineup and you don't worry about it. You know that Adam Fox is going to go out there and do Adam Fox things. So in just a minute, going to shift our attention to the best case scenarios for Adam Fox. And then we're also going to talk about the Rangers, a couple of days ago, more than a couple at this point, setting Madison Bowey to a PTO. We haven't had a chance to talk about him. We will do that. Bunch of other things as well near the end of today's episode. Jaromir Jagr announcing that he's going to finally be retiring after this upcoming season. Like I said, we'll get to all that fun stuff in just a second. All right, we just want to take a minute to let everybody know that today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by Gametime. Gametime has a new feature called Gametime Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even faster and even easier. Gametime Picks filters out the fluff to show you only the incredible deals on great seats so that you do not have to waste time searching through thousands and thousands of tickets. You've got Gametime Picks. Curation makes it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, etc. You've got all-in pricing. Toggling this feature shows the total upfront with no surprise fees at checkout. You get views from your seat. Get a panoramic view of your seat in the app before you buy. That's a fantastic feature, by the way. You get the lowest price guarantee, or Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference. And Gametime ticket coverage, your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Gametime. All right, let's go ahead and keep everything rolling here on Locked On New York Rangers. Huge shout out to the everydayers who, follow along on this podcast, keep in touch with Ranger hockey for, really the entire season. and, just supporting the show any way that you can. It really definitely does mean a lot to me. And we're going to go ahead and continue today's episode by talking about the best case scenarios for Adam Fox. I think in a best case scenario, the first thing that kind of pops into my head is another Norris Trophy. The way I see it, why not? As I've mentioned, he is among, obviously, the NHL elite defensemen. He's got some competition there. There's no doubt about that. But there's no reason why Adam Fox should not be firmly in the mix for another Norris Trophy when this next season is all said and done. And obviously, I think team success can play a little bit of a role in that. It's not the end-all, be-all. I know at times there's a tendency, for the voters to favor the defenseman who ends up with the most points. Now, Adam Fox could do that as well, but I also would like to say I don't think that it necessarily should go to the defenseman with the most points. I don't think that should be automatic. There's almost a kind of a situation here where you would like the NHL to do something with the defenseman that they do with the forwards, because with the forwards, they've got the Selke Trophy, and that goes to the best defensive forward in the league. They should do one, a Selke version for defensemen, the best overall defensive defenseman in the league. Because the Norris, it does feel like it kind of tends to favor players with offense. But regardless of what the criteria is, because Adam Fox can put up points, he can play great defense as well. Regardless of the criteria, Adam Fox should be firmly in the mix. As I mentioned, he has not finished any worse than 5th in the voting in any of the last 4 years for the Norris Trophy. So that's certainly realistic. Something else that I think could be realistic, how about a 20-goal season for Adam Fox? We saw his scoring see a huge uptick this past season. Not huge, but a fairly significant uptick for his offense when it comes to goal scoring this past season for Adam Fox. Fox this past season, a career high 17 goals. His previous career high was the season before, 12 goals. So obviously, that number is fairly consistently risen over the last handful of seasons here. What I found interesting about this, though, is that Adam Fox last year, again, 17 goals after just 12 the previous season. He did that despite playing 82 games 2 seasons ago and then only 72 games this past season. And he also did it while shooting quite a bit less frequently than he did the season before. 2 years ago, Adam Fox had 159 shots on goal and a shooting percentage of just 7.5%. This past year, his shots on goal were down 137, but a shooting percentage of 12.4. So Adam Fox maybe picking his spots a little bit better. I mean, there's a bunch of stuff. There's a little bit of a random factor that goes into that as well, of course. But Adam Fox becoming a more prolific shooter, a more prolific goal scorer. We always think of him as an assist guy and a pass first. And obviously that's going to be the case with just about every defenseman, even the more offensively gifted defenseman in the NHL. But yeah, man, I mean, he's flirting with 20-goal territory, and that's something that I think is certainly within his grasp this upcoming season. As I mentioned, he missed 10 games last year. Adam Fox does not typically miss time, so he could see an uptick in goals being scored just from the very simple fact that he'll probably end up playing more than 72 games this upcoming season. So we shall see, but a new career high in goals, and more specifically, a 20-goal season, certainly within reach for Adam Fox. With Fox in a best-case scenario, he continues to make big-time special teams contributions. I've mentioned many times here, and you guys are well aware of it. You don't need me to tell you. But the Rangers, obviously one of their biggest strengths from this past season was special teams. Fantastic power play unit, fantastic penalty kill unit. Both of them ranked number 3 in the league overall. And when you look at the Ranger power play, Fox is kind of the straw that stirs the drink. He's definitely the quarterback out there. And that's a phrase that gets kind of tossed around pretty loosely. This guy's the quarterback of this, that guy's the quarterback of that in just about every sport. But when you look at Adam Fox, I mean, you watch the Ranger power play, and he is the guy, controlling everything out there, sees the ice very well, just makes very crisp passes. He'll basically look off a defender, pass back the other way. He really makes things happen. I mentioned his mobility earlier. He can carry the puck across the blue line, open up some passing lanes, find some guys in deep. Adam Fox is absolutely huge for the Rangers on the power play, and he's big on the penalty kill as well. It's interesting because on the penalty kill, the Rangers, they go with their top 4 defensemen, or the guys that are typically in the top 4, but they flip-flop it a little bit. They have Adam Fox out there typically with Keandre Miller, and they have Ryan Lindgren out there with Jacob Trouba, which I've found interesting this past season. That's typically how they would line up. We'll see if they stick with that formula for this upcoming season. But regardless, I mean, again, it's a very strong unit, and Adam Fox is a huge part of that as well. Obviously, logs a ton of ice time. You'll look at ice time after the game, and Adam Fox will be up there with like 24 minutes, and oh, by the way, 5 of them on the power play and 6 of them on the penalty kill, whatever it might be. The guy's always on the ice, and he's always out there in crunch moments. And obviously, special teams are huge. You got to be able to, perform on the power play. You got to be able to perform on the penalty kill. And Adam Fox is a big reason why the Rangers have been so successful in both, really ever since he got into the NHL, but certainly this past season, most specifically. In a best case scenario, I think we can also see Adam Fox begin to gel a little bit with a different defense partner. Now, I am not advocating in the slightest to break up Adam Fox and Ryan Lindgren. I've said all along, I think it's a fantastic pairing. The two of them have basically been joined in the hip ever since they both came in to the NHL. And Adam Fox, that's his right-hand man there with Ryan Lindgren. However, you look at the writing on the wall right now, and I say this as a big fan of Ryan Lindgren. And obviously, Ryan Lindgren's free agency lasted a little bit longer than most of the other Ranger RFAs. Lindgren, of course, was an RFA this past season. And, what's it going to be? Are they going to go long-term to, keep the cap hit low? Will they try to do a shorter-term deal with Ryan Lindgren? We eventually got our answer. They gave Ryan Lindgren a very steady increase in pay, but it's only for one season. Ryan Lindgren is back on a one-year deal for $4.5 million, and then he will be a UFA at the end of the season. And I'm open to the idea of extending Ryan Lindgren. You can't go nuts in terms of the length of it, but he is still, I think, 26 years old is Ryan Lindgren. You certainly don't want to do like a 6 or 8 year deal, I don't think. But if I had to bet money on it, will this be Ryan Lindgren's final season with the New York Rangers? I'm going to say yes, it probably will be, which pains me to say that because he is one of my favorite players. I can also see the other side of it, people that rightfully have some concerns about how he's going to age and the injury history, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, you guys watch Ryan Lindgren play hockey, you know what I'm talking about. So with all that said, let me circle back to the point that I was making here. We see Adam Fox gel with a different defense partner this season. I would love to be wrong about Ryan Lindgren, but with what I'm about to say here, but I get the feeling he's not going to play all 82. He's not a strong candidate to do so. So if there's a situation where he's out of the lineup, or even there's just a situation where maybe the Rangers are in a little bit of a slump, they're shifting things around a little bit, moving, changing line combos, defense pairings, we need to see Adam Fox gel with another defense partner at some point this upcoming season. Because like I said, he's basically spent his whole career with Ryan Lindgren. So I think it would make us feel a little bit better if the Rangers do have to part with Lindgren after this season, if we also see Adam Fox go out there and find some chemistry with another defense partner. I'm not saying that he can't possibly do that. Quite the contrary. I get the feeling that Adam Fox can make it work, which is about any defenseman. But like I said, we haven't really seen him do it, at least not with any kind of regularity, because he's always out there with Ryan Lindgren whenever Lindgren is in the lineup. But I know people have talked about maybe putting Miller with Fox. And as I mentioned a couple minutes ago, we do occasionally see those two on the penalty kill together. Years ago, when Zach Jones was making his NHL debut, he was only up for about 10 games in his first season, and the Rangers were out of the playoff race at that point. So it's kind of just a trial run for Zach Jones, but they had Jones with Adam Fox for a brief time. That was kind of an interesting pairing too. I feel like, past this season, if we do envision a scenario where Lindgren is no longer here, I feel like it would probably be K'Andre Miller. At that point, you'd bump him off the lineup to play with Adam Fox. But yeah, at one time or another this upcoming season, be nice to see him, Adam Fox, that is do what he can do with some other defense partner and hopefully find chemistry with one of these guys, whether it's K'Andre Miller, Zach Jones, or somebody we're not even thinking of. Probably somebody on the left side. That's why, my mind goes to those two. But yeah, hopefully, Adam Fox won't miss a beat with defensemen such as those, K'Andre Miller and Zach Jones. I think also in a best case scenario, a little bit more edge from Adam Fox this upcoming season. I mentioned not too long ago, Adam Fox, a new career high and hits this past year with 44. His previous career high was 30. These are not monstrous hitting numbers at all. We'll give him a pass because he does literally everything else that a defenseman can do in the NHL. But, we saw Artemi Panarin start to play with a little bit more edge this past season and really start fighting for pucks in the corner and all that good stuff. I didn't notice Fox as much as far as playing with a little bit more edge, but maybe he's got that in him. Maybe he can bring that out at some point this upcoming season. But yeah, Adam Fox, very much what you see is what you get kind of a player. He's among the NHL's elite, and I certainly don't think anything is going to change in that regard coming into this upcoming season. And don't take a player like this for granted because he's been here for a while now. 5 years. I believe this is year 6, 26 years old. Adam Fox starting to get up there a little bit, right? But don't take it for granted. Defensemen like this do not grow on trees. People that can impact the game in as many ways as he can, that can do the kind of things that he does out there. Just a complete prototypical superstar NHL defenseman is Adam Fox. So that's my advice to everybody listening, all the Ranger fans out there. Don't take a guy like this for granted. There's teams that have maybe never had a defenseman like this, and that's not even an exaggeration when I say that. But going to keep everything rolling in just a second. We're going to shift our attention to a recent PTO signee by the Rangers, a guy that we have not yet had the opportunity to talk about. That's Madison Bowey. Also going to be talking about a former Ranger that retired, and also Jaromir Jagr. He has announced that this upcoming season will be his final season. So going to talk about all that stuff, one or two other things as well in just a second. All right, we just want to take a minute to let everybody know that today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by FanDuel. You've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Well, we have something a little different for you. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with the YouTube TV base plan, you will be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel at any time. Just visit FanDuel.com to download America's #1 sports book. All right, and so shifting gears now to close out today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers, I want to go ahead talk a little bit about a free agent that the Rangers brought in on a PTO that we have not yet had the chance to circle back and discuss, at least as of yet, and that would be 29-year-old defenseman Madison Bowey. I'll be honest, this one is a little bit of a head scratcher because you look at what he's done recently. He hasn't done almost literally anything in the NHL over the last 4 years. The last 4 seasons total, as far as the NHL is concerned, Bowey has played a grand total of 4 games. So doesn't take a mathologist to figure out that that's 1 game per season. The other thing too, though, is, there's people on the other side that are like furious about this move, picking up Madison Bowey on a PTO. It's not a disaster. It's an ultimately harmless move by Chris Drury. We see teams around the NHL do this. They pick up players, veterans, guys that can't get themselves a guaranteed contract. They bring them in on a PTO, and ultimately they either make the team or they don't make the team, and we all move on with our lives, and in many cases forget that the player was even in Ranger training camp. So we got to acknowledge that first. However, and I mentioned this when I talked about the Rangers' other PTO signing, Adam Ernie. At least with Ernie, he's been in the NHL the last bunch of years, so there's that. But the thing that I mentioned then, and that I'll mention again here, I think it is fair game if you're somewhat upset at Chris Drury for maybe not going out and finding better players that you could bring in on a PTO. Among the players that signed a PTO with one team or another around the NHL this offseason, you got Max Pacioretty. He's always been kind of a personal favorite of mine. I've talked about this before. Fortunate enough to get to interview him a couple times in the past when I was, covering local sports in Connecticut. Really nice guy, really cool and everything. And I just like his game. He's obviously suffered from a bunch of injuries, and it's the ultimate, can he stay healthy kind of a situation. I believe he's 35 years old now, dealt with a bunch of injuries, but it was not that long ago where, he had, as recently as 3 seasons ago, a very, very productive season when he was still a member of the Vegas Golden Knights. So Pacioretty is somebody that I would have been interested in. My top choice as far as players to sign PTOs, I think, would have been Kailer Yamamoto. He's only 25 years old, former first-round pick, a couple of decent seasons in the NHL. I think it's fair to say that he's fallen short of expectations. But when you look at his age, 25, and you look at all the players that sign PTOs, I don't think anybody's got a higher ceiling or more upside than Kailer Yamamoto. So I'd have been interested in him for sure. I'll throw out Tyler Johnson. I mean, it's not the most exciting name. We've talked about him before in the past. When I was looking to bring in like a fourth line type player and somebody that won't cost a whole lot in free agency, I think I mentioned Tyler Johnson. Maybe this offseason, maybe a couple off seasons ago. I don't know. It's come up a couple of times. Not a superstar player at this point by any means. But yeah, I think I would have preferred him over the guys that the Rangers signed. But with all that said, let's go ahead, give Madison Bowey a fair trial here. I think we owe him that. He was drafted in the 2nd round by the Washington Capitals back in 2013 at number 53 overall. He has played 5 seasons in the NHL with the Caps, the Red Wings, the Blackhawks, and the Canucks. I mentioned a second ago that over the last 4 seasons combined, he has only played 4 games in the NHL. 2 of them were in 2020, 2021 with the Blackhawks, and 2 of them were in 2021, 2022 with the Vancouver Canucks, and he has played 0 NHL games over the past 2 years. That's why this is such a head scratcher for me as far as, why to bring him in on PTO. But 158 career NHL games for Bowey, 5 goals, 35 assists. He's also a minus 22 average 15 minutes, 36 seconds of ice time, 166 block shots, 181 hits. And last season was his first and possibly only season in the KHL. So he wasn't even with an AHL team last year. He went overseas to play in the KHL. He played on 3 different teams last year, 51 games, 4 goals, 10 assists, and was a -4. As far as like, his background and like coming up and heading into the NHL, this is going back almost a decade. But Bowey was a standout player with Kelowna. Let me try that again. Kelowna, is that how you say it? Kelowna of the WHL. Had 172 points in 259 games there. He was also the captain of that team for 2 seasons. And for what it's worth for everybody, they won a WHL championship back in 2014, 2015. And that was one of the years while he was captain. He was also teammates with Leon Draisaitl for that run. So, I've been hinting at this pretty much this entire little segment here, but it's not the most exciting, inspiring move that the Rangers have ever made. But we have been surprised in the past. We've seen players, not just the Rangers, but other players, sign PTOs and end up, making the team, carving out a solid role for themselves. And I will say, I think Bowey deserves a chance, just like every single other player on the Ranger roster right now certainly does. I just don't see it happening as far as him making the NHL. You got to figure the top, I would say 7 spots are all spoken for as far as the Rangers go. Zach Jones, I think, they're not saying it at training camp, but he's going to be the 6th defenseman on opening night. I'll be very surprised if it unfolded any other way besides that. And Chad Ruhwedel, to me, looks like the guy that's going to be the number 7 defenseman. And then on the Wolfpack, you've got a mix of, veterans and some young guys. The 2 young guys really are Mancini and Robertson. Then you've got some journeyman type players, Scanlon, Mackey, Harper, etc. Even when you look at the Wolfpack roster, I'm not even sure where exactly Bowey would fit in, but we'll see how it all goes. Competition makes everybody better. You guys know how it goes. And like I said, he deserves a chance, just like everybody else that's in training camp with the New York Rangers. Figure we could pretty much call it there for today. I did have a couple other things I wanted to mention real quick here at the end, rapid fire. First of all, playoff overtime stories. We are going to be doing an episode right before the season starts where I read all of your responses to this question. I want to know, for the Ranger playoff run this past year, where you were, who you were with, what you were doing during any of the Ranger 4 overtime playoff wins. I'm going to read those stories on a future episode of Locked On New York Rangers. That's always a lot of fun when we do episodes like that. Very interactive. Also, it is finally the last dance for former Ranger Jaromir Jagr. He has announced that this upcoming season will be his last of professional hockey. He's going to be playing for Kladno of the Czech League. He has played the last 7 seasons with them, and he is now 52 years old for anybody keeping track at home. So pretty amazing. And I realize, it's not the NHL and everything, but obviously this guy has a tremendous passion for the game and wants to keep playing for as long as he can, but has announced now that this upcoming season will be his final. So, I'm kind of at the point with Jagr. I'll believe it when I see it. But if indeed he does hang up the skates at the end of this upcoming season, certainly we'll do, we'll spend some time on Jaromir Jagr. He wasn't with the Rangers for an eternity, but he was here for 4 years, part of some winning. Not any massively deep playoff runs. I think the farthest they ever got with Jagr was the 2nd round, if I'm not mistaken. I'd have to look that up to know for sure. But he had that one season, Lundqvist rookie season, where how many points did he have? What was it, like 123? That was fantastic to see as well. So we'll definitely talk a little bit more about Jaromir Jagr if and when he finally decides to hang him up. Also at practice a little bit earlier here today on Friday, there was a little bit of a scary moment, a collision between Mika Zibanejad and Vincent Trocheck. Basically what happened, you had Igor playing the puck, surprise, surprise, right? But he was playing the puck and basically clearing it down the ice, and Trocheck was on the opposite team. So Igor was on the same team as Mika Zibanejad. Trocheck was on the other team. Trocheck kind of jumped up to try to glove the puck and knock it down, and Mika was, skating in the area as well. So Trocheck's in the air. He can't really control himself, and they just kind of bumped into each other, very awkwardly. Both went down. Apparently, Mika left the ice briefly, but was back on the ice, not too long after that. So, I watched the video. It's not the craziest collision you've ever seen, but you never know what can happen the way somebody lands. So everybody can exhale. No injuries to either Mika or Trocheck on that play. And no roster posted as of yet for Sunday's preseason opener. Rangers are going to be playing the Bruins this Sunday at 5 p.m. Cannot wait for that. But at this point, this is the last episode that we're going to post before that game. So we'll all just be surprised together when we see the roster for that preseason opener. And one more thing here. Another former Ranger going to be retiring from hockey. That would be goalie Antti Raanta. Actually, I should correct myself here. He is retiring from the NHL, not retiring from hockey. It sounds like he's open and possibly even eager to play in Europe at some point. But yeah, he only spent 2 seasons as a member of the Ranger, but reportedly very well liked in the locker room and did a fantastic job. I mean, as far as backup goalies go, Antti Raanta is up there, maybe like in Ranger history, like as far as like a clear cut number 2 backup. I'm not going to include like, Richter versus Van Beesbrook, because that was always kind of 1 and 1A. But as far as like backup goalies go, I mean, look at his numbers. Like they're probably better than you remember. I think a lot of people remember him being a solid backup. He was phenomenal as a backup the 2 seasons that he spent with the New York Rangers. So obviously all the best to Antti Raanta and whatever is next for him in his hockey career. Sounds like I said, he's done with the NHL, open to continue playing in Europe. But that will do it for today, guys. Once again, if you'd like to get in touch with this podcast, please send an email to lockedonnyrangers@gmail.com. Once again, that is lockedonnyrangers@gmail.com. Definitely give us a follow on Twitter as well, @LO_NY_Rangers. Once again, that's @LO_NY_Rangers. And definitely subscribe to Locked On New York Rangers YouTube channel. Thanks again, guys. I will see you next time.